PETROFF defence, side 1. The PETROFF defence 1 e4 e5, 2 knight f3, knight f6 has been very popular recently. It was used successfully by Hübner in his candidates match against Adoyan, Bad Lauterburg 1980, and then it's been very successful for Larsen and Hort in the super tournaments Tilburg and Bourgogne, with Larsen defeating Karpov with it at Tilburg 1980. Because of this game, which is going to be featured on the tape, the world champion himself, Karpov, then used it in the next round to defeat Timman. Hort had a very good position against Karpov in the Petrov, but unfortunately lost in time. But Hort was very successful with it in his candidates match against Spassky at Reykjavik in 1977. The nature of these matches and tournaments has been such that players often try hard to win as white and are content with a draw as black. In these circumstances, the Petroff is a good weapon. The Petroff was regarded as being very passive, with white being almost unable to lose, but in fact this is not the case, and black has many interesting counter-attacking lines, some of which I'm going to show you. After the opening moves e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, white has a choice. He can either play 3 knight takes e5 and 3 d4. Both of these can transpose to each other, but first of all we'll consider the move 3 knight takes e5. Now switch off the tape and see what you play as black here. In fact, black's only move is 3d6. If black plays the immediate 3 knight takes e4, then 4 queen e2 gives white a clear advantage, because black is unable to move the knight because of knight c6 discovered check. So after 3d6, white must retreat the knight, and he has a choice here. So again, switch off and see what you would play as white here. The normal move is 4 knight f3, but first we'll look at the move 4 knight c4. It looks strange at first sight, but then from c4 the knight can go to a very good post on e3. This was tried, this move 4 knight c4, by Lebojevic against Hort at Bourgogne 1980. After Hort captured the pawn, knight takes e4, Lebojevic played the move 5 queen e2. Then after queen e7, 6 d3, knight f6, a level position was reached because neither side can achieve much, and the open e-file will normally lead to the exchange of queens. But white has a much more interesting possibility. From diagram 1, after 4 knight c4, knight takes e4, instead of playing 5 queen e2, white can play the move 5 knight c3. Now we're going to look at this move in a similar position later on, but here it seems quite effective. After 5 knight c3, if black captures, knight takes c3, b takes c3. Although black's got a positional advantage because of of the white pawn structure. White's got the open b file, and his knight will be very well placed on e3, and he can follow up with d4, knight e3 and c4 with a good game. Now back to diagram 1, and we're going to look at the normal move for knight f3. Black captures on e4, knight takes e4. Now switch off the tape here and see what you would play as white here. White has a big choice of moves here. He can play the move 5d3, very innocuous at first sight, or 5 queen e2, or 5 knight c3, or 5 d4. I'm going to look at all of these moves in turn. So first of all, we'll look at 5 d3. Now this is a very strange move at first sight, blocking the king's bishop, and seems very passive, but in fact by driving the knight back to f6, white often obtains a persistent advantage, perhaps a little bit more than he does in a lot of the other lines, but I think that black should be able to equalize if he plays carefully. In a game Giorgadze-Schussler, Dortmund 79, black played 5 knight f6, and now white pushed on 6 d4, and now switch off the tape to see what you would play as black here. Now Schussler played 6 bishop f5, which turned out to be a mistake. He could have made the position symmetrical by playing the move 6 d5, and this is the best move and gives black good chances of equality. Also possible is just a simple bishop e7. After bishop f5, white has a good move, 7 bishop d3. By threatening the exchange of bishops, white develops his king side very quickly, and if black exchanges off the bishops, white's queen comes to a very good post, as we'll see. After 7 bishop d3, black captured, bishop takes d3, white recaptured, queen takes d3, and now white's got immediate threat of queen b5 check, winning a pawn. So black played the move 8 c6, white castled kingside, black played bishop e7, and now white played the move 10 queen b3. Now this shows the disadvantage of black playing bishop f5, allowing white to threaten the exchange of bishops and thus get his queen to a good post. This attack on the b pawn gives white a slight initiative. Note that if black plays now queen b6, white goes queen to e3 with a strong pin on the bishop. So black played queen to c7, white played bishop to f4, and black decided the bishop was very well placed on f4, so he drove it away with knight to h5. White played bishop to d2, black played d5, and white played 13 c4. And we'll stop looking at this game here because white's got a clear advantage in development and black's got no compensation for this. Back to diagram 2, where black played bishop to f5, as I said, d5 leaves white with only a minimal advantage, the advantage of the first move, and also bishop e7 is perfectly adequate for black. So now to diagram 3, we'll look at 5 queen e2. Now white has only a minute advantage of this move. In fact, the round after Larsen beat Karpov with the PETROFF, Karpov played it as black against Timman, and Timman played this move 5 queen e2. Black must reply queen to e7, and now white plays d3, black plays knight to f6, white plays bishop to g5, and white has only a slight advantage in development. Karpov went on to win this game after white had played very planlessly in the middle game, but of course the position is not anything apart from equal. One of the initial games in this line was the game Spassky-Hort, Reykjavik 77, where after 7 bishop g5, queen takes e2 check, bishop takes e2, bishop e7, 9 knight c3, c6, 10 castles queenside, knight a6, 11 rook he1, knight c7, 12 knight e4, knight takes e4, 13 d takes e4, bishop takes g5 check, 14 knight takes g5, king e7, 15 f4, knight e6. A typical position had been reached for this line. Black has only a slight weakness in his d pawn, but this is well covered by the king and also the king's rook. In fact, Spassky could make no progress, and after 16 knight h3, knight c5, 17 knight f2, rook d8, 18 bishop f3, f6, 19 h4, bishop e6, 20 g4, a5, 21 a3, h6, 22 h5, rook d7, 23 knight h1, rook e8, 24 knight g3, king d8. A draw was agreed. White has no way of breaking through, and moves such as b4, trying to drive the knight away from its good post on c5, only expose the white king. So now let's go back to diagram 3 and have another look at an alternative. This move we're going to look at now is 5 knight c3. This is a very interesting move and worthy of a lot of attention. Now, black gets an immediate positional advantage after capturing on c3, but white can develop very quickly and in some cases launch a kingside attack if black castles on that side. I played this move against John Spielman at the Brighton International 1980, and we're going to follow this game. After 5 knight c3, black captured, 5 knight takes c3. It's worth pointing out that black in fact doesn't need to capture but can retreat the knight by 5 knight f6, A game Kochev-Holmov, played in the Soviet Union 1978, continued 6 d4, bishop e7, 7 bishop d3, castles kingside, and again white's only got a minute advantage. So this is something which may have been overlooked by theory, the fact that after 5 knight c3 black doesn't have to capture but can simply retreat. Back to the game, after knight c3, knight takes c3, white recaptured with the d pawn, 6 d takes c3. Now black played bishop e7. Now white's got a choice here. The book move is 7 bishop f4, but I didn't like this so much because on f4 the bishop is vulnerable to tempo gaining moves, and I'm going to illustrate this by some examples. After 7 bishop f4, castles kingside, 8 queen d2, knight d7, 9 castles queenside, knight c5. White has two alternatives. We'll look at knight d4. Then black plays rook e8. White plays 11 f3. Now black plays knight e6. And this was the kind of maneuver that made me decide in favour of 7 bishop e3. After this move, 11 knight e6, white has to retreat the bishop, bishop e3, 12 bishop e3. Then black captures, knight takes d4, white recaptures with the c pawn, c takes d4, black plays bishop f6, and again white's only got a minute advantage, and this was played in Sveshnikov against Kochev in the Soviet zonal at Lvov in 78, and this was the kind of position that didn't offer many prospects for white. Black could, by attacking the bishop on f4, could swap off some of the white pieces fairly easily. Returning to diagram 5, after 10 h3, rook e8, 11 bishop c4, bishop e6, 12 bishop takes e6, knight takes e6. Again the white bishop is under attack. After 13 bishop e3, a5, 14 h4, a4, 15 a3, queen d7, black had reasonably good chances. This was played in the game Savon-Kochev in the same Soviet zonal at Lvov, and thus I decided that 7 bishop e3 was worth trying. So back to diagram 4 and play the move 7 bishop e3. Now John Spielman played the move 7 knight c6, and this is a good move. A game Dolmatov and Akayev, played in the Soviet Championship 1979, showed black making a fairly instructive mistake of castling kingside immediately, 7 castles kingside. Now in this line it's always better for black to delay his options so that white can't gain a fairly automatic attack on the king. Dolmatov continued after 7 castles kingside, 8 queen d2, knight d7, 9 knight d4, knight to e5, 10 castles queenside, and in the game white developed a strong attack by playing f4 and following up with bishop d3. But John Spielman's move, 7 knight c6, retains black's options and does not commit him to castling kingside, which is very useful. After knight c6 I played queen d2. Now black played the move 8 knight e5. If white exchanges, then black has a better game because of his better pawn structure. And it seems that after knight d4, then black can play the immediate knight g4 with a good position. So I played the interesting 9 bishop d4. Now switch off and see what you'd play as black here. Black played the move 9 bishop f6. Now, in fact, it's a mistake to play 9 knight takes f3, 10 g takes f3, because the open g file more than compensates for the pair of doubled pawns, and this is quite an important point. Black has great trouble defending his g7 point after knight takes f3, 10 g takes f3, bishop f6, and white can play a simple rook g1, which leaves black with great problems along the g file. But after bishop f6, black aims to strong point his e5 knight. White castled queenside, 10 castles queenside. Now black played a good move. He played 10 bishop e6, which is in fact a pawn sacrifice. Now switch off the tape here and see if you can work out what happens next. White in fact played 11 queen e3, declining the sacrifice. After 11, bishop takes e5, d takes e5, queen e1. Black can play queen e7, and then if knight takes e5, bishop takes a2 is good for black. So trying to win a pawn here would be a very bad plan. After 11 queen e3, black captured on f3, knight takes f3, white recaptured with the queen, queen takes f3, black took the bishop on d4, bishop takes d4, white recaptured with a pawn, c takes d4. Now black played the move 13 queen g5 check. And in fact in this game a draw was agreed here. After queen g5 check, white plays king b1, and now black's best is probably to castle queenside, thus leaving a completely symmetric pawn position and no weaknesses for either side and no possibilities of attacking the other's king. And this seems a fairly even position. So 5 knight c3 looks as though black can maintain equality as long as he doesn't castle on the king side too early, which allows white a fairly quick attack. So back to diagram 3. After black played knight takes e4. Now we'll look at the main line, 5d4. Now black has a choice here between the advance in the centre 5d5, or playing the simple bishop e7. Both of these moves can transpose to each other, but first of all we consider the move bishop e7. Now this is a very sound move, but the trouble is that white has a space advantage and can increase it further on the queen side by playing moves such as c4 and b4. And black usually gets a very cramped position. Now this was tried with success by Petrosian in his match against Fischer, the candidates match, but that was only because Fischer misplayed the middle game. Out of the opening, white had a clear advantage, and therefore this line has fallen into disuse. After bishop e7, white attacks the knight by 6 bishop d3. Now black can of course play the move d5, transposing into the lines with 5d5, but here I'll only consider the move 6 knight f6. Now white can castle immediately, but it's very useful to play the move 7h3, which stops black from developing his queen's bishop by bishop g4, which would relieve a lot of the pressure on his position. So Fischer played the move 7h3, Petrosian castles kingside. Now white castles kingside. Now Petrosian played the move 8c6. In a fairly well-known game, Karpov-Smyslov, Smyslov tried the move 8c5, but this enabled Karpov to transpose into a fairly favourable Benoni structure after 9, knight c3, knight c6, 10, rook e1, a6, 11 d5, and this line hasn't been repeated. So after 8 c6, Fischer played 9 rook e1, black played knight bd7. He's still got a lot of problems developing his queenside pieces because of Fischer's move 11h3. His queen's bishop has nowhere to go. White now played 10 bishop f4. Black played rook e8. White played 11 c4. Black played knight to f8. White played 12 knight c3. Black played a6. Now Fischer played 13 queen b3, but recommended is 13 b4, where white gains a big space advantage on the queen side, and black has difficulty in doing anything against this. And as I said before, this is a sound position for black, but very, very passive, and consequently this hasn't been played recently. So back to diagram 3, after white plays 5d4, the main line for black is 5d5. Now this is one of the reasons that the PETROFF has become very popular recently. Black can achieve a very good position in terms of soundness, and also in this line he's got almost as much space as white, and therefore he's got little chance of getting a disadvantage if he plays accurately. And also it's very difficult for white to remove this strong knight on e4, which is very well placed. After 5d5, white usually continues 6 bishop d3. Now black has a big choice here. He can play the moves bishop e7, bishop d6, or knight d6. And the main line is bishop e7, but first of all I'll consider 6 bishop d6. So to diagram 6, we'll first of all consider knight d6. Now this is regarded as reasonable by theory, but I think in fact knight d6 is fairly illogical, because the knight's moving again, and it's already done so twice, and also black gives up his strong point on e4, which doesn't seem very logical. Again, Balashov, Benko, Lone Pine 77 went after 6 knight d6, 7 bishop f4, 7 castles rather, bishop e7, 8 bishop f4. Now black played bishop g4, white played 9 knight bd2, and we'll have a quick look at the position here after 9 knight bd2. Now black has some problems in developing his queen knight, and also he has some problems on the king side, because white has a simple plan of attacking the bishop with h3 and then following up with the maneuver rook e1 followed by knight f1 to g3, continually harassing the black queen's bishop, and this will enable him to get an advantage in time, which he may be able to convert into some other kind of advantage. After 9 knight bd2, Benko castled king side. White played 10 c3. Now black played knight d7. White played queen c2. Now this is slightly awkward for black, and he decided he had to weaken his kingside black squares by playing g6. After 12 rook ac1, this seems quite a strange move, but white has possibilities of playing c4 and wants to pile up the pressure on the c-file. After rook ac1, rook e8, 13 h3, bishop e6, 14 rook fe1, knight f8, 15 knight f1, c6, 16 knight g3. White's got a big advantage. I think that the assessment of a slight advantage isn't quite right here, and white, has all the chances here, and black has great difficulty in finding any counterplay. White's just going to simply put more pressure on the king side, and black's already weakened himself quite considerably on the black squares here. And in fact, after 16 a5 h4, note that this move is possible because after bishop takes h4, knight takes, queen takes, the knight on d6 is on prise. Black now played 17 b6, white played h5, black played bishop f6, and now white transferred his queen 19 queen d2, and already white was lining all his pieces up for an attack on the king side black squares, which black has very little that he can do against, and white duly won. So back to diagram 6. We'll look at the move bishop d6, and this is a bit more aggressive and gives black good chances. Now we're going to follow a game Gufeld-Kotchev, which went 7 castles kingside, black castled kingside, white played 8 c4. Now this is, one of the moves that white often tries in this kind of position in the PETROFF, trying to undermine the black knight on e4. Now it seems a little awkward for black because his bishop blocks the defense of the queen pawn, and also his queenside pieces can't get out very easily. But in fact black has enough resources. After 8 c4, black must play c6. Now white plays 9 queen c2. Now this is slightly awkward for black because if he plays the move bishop f5, further defending the knight, then white can play knight c3, which not only threatens to take the knight but also threatens to take the d pawn, and this is very embarrassing. So black has to play the move f5. Now white plays the move 10 knight c3. Now this position is given in Inizio as advantage to white. Analysis by Polugevsky, and he gives the move for black after 10 knight c3, bishop e6, whereupon 11 queen b3 gives black great difficulties in defending both his d pawn and his b pawn. And also notice the threat of pawn takes, c takes d5, followed by a possible double capture on e4 because of the unprotected bishop on e6. But Kotchev came up with a good move here. He played after 10 knight c3, knight a6, which relies on an indirect defense to the d pawn. If white now plays c takes d5, knight b4 gives black a very good game. So white had to play the move 11a3 in order to stop the threat of knight b4, and black played the move knight c7, defending the d5 pawn. By this manoeuvre, black's maintained his solid outpost on e4, and this is very important, and this makes this line playable for black. After the further moves 12 rook e1, king h8, 13 b4, bishop d7, 14 bishop b2, bishop e8, 15 c5, bishop e7, 16 knight e5, bishop h4, black already had a slight advantage. The powerful position of his knight on e4 is very important, and now he's starting to get threats on the king side. He can move his queen's knight to e6 and then take advantage of all white's pieces being still on the queen side. And this is an interesting possibility for black. Back to diagram 6, we'll look at the move 6 bishop e7. White now castles kingside, 7 castles kingside. Now black has a choice. The normal main line is 7 knight c6, but first of all we'll look at the move 7 bishop f5, which was introduced by Hübner against Adoyan at Bad Lauterburg in his candidates match. However, in fact, it had seen before in a game Tarrasch-Walbrot 1894, but the move order was slightly different. After 7 bishop f5, white played 8 rook e1. Black played knight c6. This deviates from the game Tarash Walbut, which black played 8 8 castles rather. Now, after 8 knight c6, white played 9 knight bd2, exchanging off black's strong knight on e4, and this left him with a slight advantage after 9 knight takes d2, 10 queen takes d2, 10 bishop takes d3, 11 queen takes d3. But in fact it's debatable whether this slight advantage obtained is enough to win. 10 bishop takes d3, 11 queen takes d3. Now, in the two games in the Adoyan-Hübner match, Hübner tried for 14 moves in one and 34 moves in the other to convert his slight advantage into something a bit better, and it was dismissed as though white didn't have quite enough to win. But Kasparov made a very determined effort to prove the worth of this line for white by trying it against Karpov in the Soviet teams competition in early '81, and he came very close to winning, and I think probably that white has some chance of making something of this position. After 11 queen takes d3, black normally castles, white plays 12 queen c3 rather, and now black has a choice between queen d7 and queen d6. Now queen d6 prevents the bishop temporarily from coming to f4, but after queen d6 white can play the move queen f5 followed by bishop f4, and I'm not sure whether black is in fact equal here, so I think queen d7 is best. Then after 13 bishop f4, rook fe8, 14 h3, Hübner played a6, preventing the white queen from coming to b5 at some point. White played rook e3, black played bishop d6, white played 16 knight g5, black played g6, white captured, 17 bishop takes d6, black captured with the queen, queen takes d6, white played 18 rook a u1, and black played queen d7. Now, as I said, Adoyan tried for 34 moves and only managed to draw at the end of it, but on the other hand it seems that white still has a slight advantage here due to the slight weakness perhaps of black's king's position, and this isn't the line that anybody wants really to play as black unless they're just playing for a draw, because white has all the chances in practice, and even though black is fairly solid, it does only need a slight mistake for white to gain a bigger initiative to force a weakness. In fact, in the game Kasparov-Karpov, Kasparov did succeed in creating, a slight weakness in black's position, and could have in fact probably won the game. In fact, I don't think this idea of 7 bishop f5 will be repeated in too many games, because despite its soundness, white has almost no risks, and he can play to win for a long time, and This is what the Petrov used to be regarded as, an opening where white can play to win without any risk. And in fact, the older 7 knight c6 gives black lots of counter-attacking lines which are much more difficult for white.
This is the end of side 1. Please turn over your tapes for side 2. Petrov defense side 2. Please set up the pieces in the position of diagram 6, adding the moves black bishop to e7 and white castles. Now we'll look at the main line, black knight to c6.
Now white has several moves. The main line is 8 rook e1, but first of all we'll look at the alternatives. Karpov tried the move 8 c4 against Larsen at Bourgogne 1980. Now this move virtually forces black to play 8 knight f6, but leaves white with an isolated queen pawn after 9 knight c3, bishop e6, 10 c takes d5, knight takes d5. This is another common position from the Petrov, and one which is probably almost dead equal. After 10 knight takes d5, Karpov played a3, Larsen played queen d7. Now Karpov played bishop b5 with the threat of knight e5, forcing black to play 12 f6, which leaves a slight weakness on the square e6, but after 13 rook e1, a6, 14 bishop a4, bishop f7, Karpov was unable to make anything of this and played 15 queen e2, black played b5, black played bishop c2, black castled kingside. Now white has a slight problem because he cannot attack black's kingside successfully, and Karpov traded off the knights by knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, then 18 queen d3, black plays g6, and a draw was agreed a few moves later. And black's position is very solid here. Although white can try bishop b3, trying to force black to give up control of d5, he can never actually do this, and the weakness of the e6 square is not sufficient to cause black any problems. Back to diagram 7, there's a far more interesting alternative to rook e1, and that's 8 knight c3. As far as I know, this hasn't been played very much. It was played in a game Brown against Murray in the Canadian Open 1971, and seemed to give white very good chances. After knight takes c3, b takes c3, bishop g4, Brown played rook b1, and black's got some slight problems down the b file, and white has got a very solid position. He can play bishop f4 followed by rook e1 to e3, protecting the f3 knight, and then move the queen onto the e file perhaps. And white had very good chances in this game. I don't know why this has been neglected, but perhaps black can in fact retreat the knight after 8 knight c3 to play knight f6 with a satisfactory position, and perhaps this is the reason why it has not been played very much. but an interesting alternative. Now let's look at the main line. From diagram 7, the move 8, rook e1. Now black plays 8, bishop g4. And white again has a choice. So switch off the tape and see what you'd play here as white. If you played bishop takes e4, d takes e4, rook takes e4, winning a pawn, black could equalise easily by bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, knight takes d4, winning the pawn back and leading to a completely equal position. So this is no good. Also, white can here again play c4, undermining the black knight on e4. But then after the retreat, knight f6, c takes d5, knight takes d5. White has the isolated pawn. He has some attacking chances to compensate for this. But I think that black should be alright. That's after 9, c4, knight f6, c takes d5, knight takes d5. So white normally plays the move 9, c3. This has the idea of possibly playing queen b3, or possibly queen c2, and also prevents black from taking the d4 pawn. Now black has a problem here, because obviously white has the direct threat of taking on d4, so he plays 9 f5. Now this is a very interesting line, and this is a good line for black to play, because he has very good counter chances against white's king position if white goes after black's queenside by queen b3. And I'm now going to have a look at some games which featured this line. First of all, we'll look at the game Karpov-Korchnoi played in the candidates final at Moscow in 1974. White played 10 queen b3, and Korchnoi decided now to castle, gambiting the b pawn. Obviously now if queen takes b7, black can play possibly queen d6, or even possibly knight a5. So Karpov decided to play the move 11 knight bd2, preventing black from doubling the pawns on f3, and also containing a threat of knight takes e4, f takes e4, bishop takes e4, because of the pin on the queen pawn. So Korchnoi played the move 11 king h8. Now Karpov played the move 12 h3. 12 knight f1, bishop takes f3 is reasonable for black, and this was the game Capablanca-Kostic, 1919. Korchnoi retreated the bishop, 12 bishop h5, and now Karpov took the pawn, queen takes b7. Korchnoi played rook to f6, threatening a discovery with the knight. Karpov retreated the queen, 14 queen b3. Korchnoi played rook g6 with obvious threats against white's king. And now Karpov played bishop e2, 15 bishop e2. And this move protects f3 again, and this is very important. Now black played bishop h4. Now Karpov defended against the threat by 16 rook f1, and after bishop takes f3, 17 knight takes f3, 18, 17 bishop takes f2 check, rook takes f2, knight takes f2, 19 king takes f2. Korchnoi played queen d6 with a deadly threat of playing queen g3 check, but no, Karpov defended with knight g5, and after 20 rook f8, 21 queen a3, queen d8, 22 bishop f4, white had a winning position. They had two pieces for the rook up, and also black had insufficient attack against the king. So theory had decided that this line was slightly better for white, but recently a game played in the German league between Hübner and Boric showed a very strong idea for black. So back to diagram 8, again Hübner-Boric. After 10 queen b3, black played move queen d6, with the immediate threat of bishop takes f3 followed by queen g6 check. And this also gives black the option of castling queenside, which is something which is not really thought of very often in this line. But queen d6 worked out very well. Hübner played the very risky 11 queen takes b7. Much safer was 11 knight bd2. And after rook b8, queen to a6, 12 bishop takes f3, g takes f3, 13 queen g6 check, 14 king f1, not king h1 of course. Switch off the tape and see if you can find black's next move. He played a brilliant move now. He played the move 14 castles kingside, sacrificing a piece. If white takes, f takes e4, black recaptures with the f pawn, f takes e4, and white has great difficulties defending against black's threats against f2. So Hübner played bishop c2, so that his queen can come back, and after bishop h4, played 16 rook e2. Now Boric played the move rook f6, threatening a deadly discovery with the knight. Now Hübner decided now to take the piece. After 17 queen d3, black has no immediate win, but has good compensation for the pawn because of white's shattered kingside. Anyway, Hübner played 17 f takes e4, black played f takes e4. Now white played bishop e3. Now black played knight takes d4, discovering an attack on the queen. Hübner took on f6, queen takes f6, black recaptured, queen takes f6, and white played c takes d4. Now white's got two pieces and a rook for the queen, but black has very good chances here, and in fact black's got a winning position after the move c5, which causes grave problems for white. In fact, black played the move queen f3, and after 21 king e1, white's king escaped to the queen side, and eventually he won the game. But after c5, black has a very good position, white being unable to take because of queen takes b2. So this game shows that black has very good chances with the move queen d6, and this game probably inspired Hübner, in fact, to look at the Petrov, and he used it himself in the match against Adoyan. So back to diagram 8. Put the queen from b3 back on d1 and play the move for white 10 knight bd2. This is a much safer move for white, and he just aims to maneuver the knight over to the king side via f1 and stop black's attack rather than try and win on the queen side. We'll have a quick look at the game Steen against Toth. After 10 knight b d2, black played queen d6, white played knight f1, black castled king side, white played knight g3, black played king h8, and only now did white play queen b3. Notice that the knight on g3 is blocking a lot of black's threatening attacks with bishop takes f3 and bishop h4 and rook to f6 to g6. So perhaps this is the best way of playing for white. After 13 queen b3, black played the move rook a to e8. In fact, much more sensible seems the move rook b8, just defending the b7 pawn. But Toth decided to attack rather than defend. After rook a e8, white played queen takes b7. Black now took on f2, knight takes f2. White recaptured, king takes f2. Black played the move f4. White played 16 knight f1. Now black captured on f3. Bishop takes f3. This is slightly awkward obviously for white, because if g takes f3 then bishop h4 check wins immediately. So white must recapture with the king. King takes f3. Now black played the move queen to h6. Now switch off the tape and see what you'd play as white here. In fact, Steen played a very good move. He played 18 rook takes e7, which is practically the only move. Black's got terrible threats of queen h5 check followed by bishop h4 check, which is devastating if white does nothing about it. So rook takes e7. Black recaptured with the rook, rook takes e7, and white retreated his king, king to f2. Black played queen to e6. Now white played another good move, played 20 queen to a6. If he plays bishop d2 preventing the check on e1, then rook b8 followed by rook takes b2 is slightly awkward. After queen a6, queen e1 check, king g1, black played f3, white captured, g takes f3, black recaptured with the rook, rook takes f3. Now switch off the tape and see what you would play as white here. Steen in fact played the move 23 bishop g5, but he missed a brilliant win here with 23 bishop e3. Now this cuts the black queen off from the defence down the e file and threatens queen c8 mate and rook takes e1. Now it looks as though black's got a very good counter here with rook takes f1 check, and if bishop takes f1 then queen takes e3 check. But after rook takes f1 check, white comes up with king g2. And black's still in real trouble here, because white's still got this tremendous threat of queen c8 mate. So after king g2, black recaptures on e3, queen takes e3, defending against the threat of mate on c8, and white now recaptures simply 25 rook takes f1. Now white's threatening rook f8 mate and queen c8 mate, and if black goes back, rook e8, then queen takes c6 wins a piece, because the rook on e8 is on prise, and g6 now allows queen c8 check, king g7, queen f8 mate. So this would have been a brilliant end to the game. But Steen in fact played bishop g5, and black was able to defend by queen f2 check, king h1, rook e f7, with the game eventually ending in a draw. So we can see that black gets good attacking chances in many of the lines, and especially in the lines where he keeps his outpost on e4, the knight outpost, and doesn't concede any advantage in space to white. And recently the Petrov has become more popular because players such as Toth have shown that black has good counter-attacking chances in a lot of these lines. Now we're going to look at the other main line for white on move 3. So from the start position, 1 e4 e5, 2 knight f3 knight f6, 3 d4. This is an aggressive line for white, and most recent games have featured the move 3 knight takes e4. So we'll look at this. 3 e takes d4 allows white to play e5 with a better game than in the other lines. Now, after 3 knight takes e4, white plays bishop d3, black plays d5, and white recaptures knight takes e5. Now black has a big choice here. He can play bishop e7 or bishop d6 or knight d7. Now Larsen beat Karpov at Tilburg with the move 5 knight d7, and this has been very popular since. But first of all we'll look at bishop d6. After bishop d6, white has a big choice of moves. He can play the move castles, he can play knight c3, or he can play knight d2. After knight c3, the game Tal Benko Hastings 73 went knight takes c3, b takes c3, castles kingside, white castled kingside, and then black played knight d7, and white's got a slight advantage. After knight d2, black can transpose into a game which I'm going to look at later, Timoshenko-Yusupov, by playing bishop takes e5, d takes e5, knight c5. So the normal line for white is 6 castles, then black castles. Now white has a choice here on move 7, so switch off and see what you'd play as white. There was a lot of interest in the move 7c4, which it was thought to give a white advantage, but a game Tal Karpov, Milan 75, showed that black can just hold the position after 7c4 with bishop takes e5, 8d takes e5, knight c6, 9c takes d5, queen takes d5, 10 queen c2, knight b4, 11 bishop takes e4, knight takes c2, 12 bishop takes d5, bishop f5. Now black's temporarily a piece down, but in return we'll get the rook on a1, but then black's knight will be very awkwardly placed, and this position was very critical, and it was thought at times that either white was winning or black was winning, but in fact it looks as though it's fairly equal. The game Tal Karpov Milan 1975 showed the best course. After 12 bishop f5, Tal played g4, deflecting the bishop. Karpov took, bishop takes g4. White played bishop e4, black played knight takes a1. White played knight c3, black played bishop h3. White played rook e1, black played f5. White played e takes f6. Black played rook a e8. White played bishop d2. Now black was forced to give back the exchange here with rook takes e4. White recaptured, knight takes e4. Black played knight c2. White played rook c1. Black played knight d4. And white played 21, rook takes c7. And black's a pawn down, but he drew the ending because of his control over the white squares. And this game shows the best moves for both sides on almost every occasion. And after this game, the line became almost obsolete because it was thought that neither side could improve on this. So back to diagram 9. Instead of c4, play the move 7 knight d2. After knight d2, black plays bishop takes e5. White recaptures, d takes e5. Black plays the move knight to c5. Now if white retreats the bishop, bishop e2, black gets a good game by knight c6, followed by bishop f5. So white plays knight b3. Black captures, knight takes d3. White recaptures, queen takes d3. Black plays knight c6. White plays 11, bishop f4. Now switch off and see what you'd play for black here. Black in fact plays the move queen to d7. Not very obvious, but if he develops the bishop, it will be, say, bishop e6. White can play the move queen g3 with good prospects on the king side, and also bishop e6 is bad because of knight c5 at some point. So queen d7. Now white has a big choice here. Again, Gurgenitsy Dvoretsky. White played 12 rook e1, rook f to e1 with a good position. But in fact, I think that the opening was at least equal for black. After rook e1, black played queen g4, and then after bishop g3, bishop e6, h3, queen g6, 15, queen d2, knight e7, 16, knight d4. White had a good position, but I think black could, after rook e1, play the move queen f5 with good play. Again, Timoshenko-Yusupov went 12 rook a to d1, and then black did play queen g4, but queen f5 is also a possibility here, with good chances again for black. After rook a d1, queen g4, white played queen e3, black went knight e7, white played h3, black went queen g6, white went c3, and black went b6, with a slightly better position for black, who can follow up with c5, and then he's got a slightly better bishop than white's. Back to diagram 10, we're now going to have a look at the move knight d7. Now this has been all the rage recently, and Larsen beat Karpov with this move at Tilburg. After knight d7, white's got a fair choice of moves. He can play 6 knight takes f7 here. After king takes f7, queen h5 check, king e7, queen e2, threatens f3, and black's forced to play king f7 with a draw. And this was played in the game Nunn-Balashov at the Malta Olympiad. And this is the reason why John Nunn plays the bishop's opening to avoid the Petrov, because of this line. After 6 knight takes f7, black can't go queen e7 because of the move queen e2. Then if king takes f7, queen h5 check, king f6. White castles, black plays queen f7, white plays queen h4 check, black plays g5, white plays bishop takes g5 check, black plays knight takes g5, white plays 12 f4, black plays king e6. Now white plays f takes g5 with a winning advantage. This happened in Gurgenitsi Berlin, Tbilisi, in 1978. Now white also has another move. He can play knight takes d7, bishop takes d7, castles kingside, but then black has the move queen h4. Apparently this is either giving white the advantage or unclear after hc4, castles queenside, 9 c5, g5, 10 knight c3, bishop g7, 11 knight e2. But in fact it seems that black is at least equal in this position and good chances of a kingside attack. So knight takes d7 doesn't seem a very good try against this. Now the move queen e2 hasn't been very successful, so it's likely that white's going to look for alternatives here, and a possible one is castles kingside. But black should be alright after knight takes e5, d takes e5, and then knight c5, with similar ideas to the bishop d6 line. And this should only give white a slight advantage, if at all. So I think at the moment the theory in this line seems to give black at least an equal game. After 597 we're going to look at 6 queen e2, the main line. Now after queen e2, black's got a choice of moves. He can play the pawn sacrifice, knight takes e5, or he can play queen e7. After queen e7, a game Karpov went bishop takes e4, d takes e4, bishop f4. And now Hort got a good game with knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop f5, 10 knight c3, black castled queenside, white castled queenside. Now Hort played queen e6. Now black had no problems at all in this game. He's got the 2 bishops, and white's got no clear plan at all. And black only in fact lost the game through losing on time, but was alright throughout the whole game. And so it seems that queen e7 at least equalises for black, and knight takes e5 isn't, the only move that is okay for black in this position. Back to diagram 10 and play the moves 6 queen e2, knight takes e5. Now white takes on e4, bishop takes e4, black recaptures, d takes e4, white captures with the queen, queen takes e4. Now black has to lose a pawn here, which he sacrifices with bishop e6. And now white has a choice here. He can take the knight with either the queen or the pawn. Karpov took with the queen, but first of all we'll look and see what happens if white takes with the pawn. 9 d takes e5. Now black has a very strong position here. He plays bishop d5, and white's forced to play 10 queen g4 to retain control of g2. Black plays h5, white has to play queen to h3. Black plays queen e7, threatening the e-pawn. White plays 12 f4. Notice that bishop f4 is no good because of queen b4 check, followed by queen e4 check. And now after f4, black plays a very good move, queen e6. Now, if white avoids the exchange of queens, black can play queen c6 or f6, both of which are fairly devastating. So white captures, queen takes e6, black recaptures, f takes e6. Now white has to castles. Black plays bishop c5 check. White plays 15 king h1. Black plays castles queenside. Now white's in a terrible mess here, and black's two bishops more than compensate for the pawn. In fact, white's g-pawn is almost indefensible in this position. After 16 knight c3, bishop c6, black's got threats of playing his rook onto the g6 square or the g4 square. In fact, white played the move 17 f5, and after rook d4, white can't in fact play bishop e3 because of rook g4, bishop takes c5, rook takes g2, and now black's threatening a mate. White must play h3. Now black follows up with a typical windmill combination, rook takes c2 check, and white has to keep moving his king while black takes the b pawn, then returns to the c2 and chops off the knight with a winning position. So white tried the move 18h3 in the game Kane-Rogoff, and black played the move rook g4 anyway, and white resigned. After h takes g4, h takes g4 is mate, and white's got no defense against the threats of taking on g2. So back to diagram 11, white plays queen takes e5. Now black plays the move queen to d7, a very strong move which prepares castling queenside for black, and this leaves white in a bit of a problem because black's going to gain an advantage in development, and he's got the bishop pair. Also, white's position is slightly awkward because his queen's going to get bashed around by black's pieces and pawns, and this is a real difficult position for white, and it's given as unclear by theory, but in fact it seems that white can't avoid incurring a disadvantage here. Now, in a game Unziker-Rogoff, white castled kingside, and Karpov-Larsen, white also castled kingside immediately. But perhaps there's better moves than castling kingside, because this seems to leave white with no defense against a coming kingside attack. So perhaps c3 or perhaps bishop e3 are better moves. Anyway, let's have a look at castles kingside. Now black plays 10 castles queenside, immediately threatening the d pawn, and white plays bishop e3. Now black has a choice of moves here. Switch off and see what you'd play as black here. Larsen against Karpov played the move bishop b4, preventing the move queen a5 for white. After bishop d6, white can play queen a5, but then black has an interesting move. He can play the move bishop to d5, which is quite difficult for white. If he plays queen takes a7, black can go queen g4, white plays f3, and then black goes queen h4 with a strong attack. Or instead of this, if white plays knight c3 after the move bishop d5, bishop takes g2, king takes g2, queen g4 check, gives black a very strong attack. And Karpov probably felt that this was equally devastating. But back to diagram 12. Now white had a difficult decision to make on move 12. He played knight c3, which turned out very badly. It's possible that c3, bishop d6, queen a5, black again can play bishop d5 with the same nasty old threats that he had before. Although white may be able to get away with something like f3 then. Maybe a3 is possible, but then after f6, queen g3, bishop d6, white probably has no choice but to give back the pawn with bishop f4 when black must have the advantage. So probably white's already in trouble here. And Karpov played knight c3. Black played f6. White played queen g3. No, Larsen played a very good move. He played bishop takes c3. 13 bishop takes c3. Now this cripples white's queen side, and white's got no attacking chances on the queen side, and also white's queen side pawns are very weak now, whereas black can just throw all his forward and try and smash open white's king side. After 14, b takes c3. Larsen started this immediately with h5, which causes a lot of bother for white. After h5, white played h4. No, Larsen played g5. And Karpov's in trouble here. If he plays h takes g5, then h4, queen h2 is probably best, because after queen f4, then f takes g5 is very awkward. Queen h2, then h3, g3, and white's queen is completely boxed in on h2. So understandably, Karpov did not want to go in for this, and after 15 g5 played the move 16 f3. But now the e-file is very weak, and black has no trouble in gaining control of this. He played rook dg8, and Karpov played rook f2, protecting the g2 square. Black played queen c6, threatening the c-pawn. White played bishop d2. Black played g4. White played f4. And now black played bishop c4. And Larsen thinks that white's completely finished here, and it's pretty bad for him. He's tied down to the defense of his queenside pawns, and also he's got no defense against all the black rooks and coming down the e-file. Also, his king side is terribly weak. He can't move the queen because of g3. So Karpov decided to sack a pawn by playing d5, and then after bishop takes d5, f5, rook e8, 22 a3, rook e4, 23 rook e1, rook he8, 24 rook takes e4, rook takes e4, 25 king h2, queen c5, 26 bishop f4, rook e1, 27 bishop d2, rook a1, 28 queen e3, queen d6 check, 29 rook f4, b6, 30 c4, bishop takes c4, 31 queen d4, queen takes d4, 32 rook takes d4, bishop b5. black's already a pawn up, and white's going to lose even more pawns. And Larsen eventually won the ending on move 66, but this was only because Karpov fought very hard. This game by Larsen was very impressive, with Karpov making no noticeable mistakes apart from his choice of opening. And I think the PETROFF is going to become very popular because it's inherently a very sound opening, and also by playing 2 knight f6, it's also a very aggressive defense in some ways. Black doesn't start defending against all white's threats, but starts, counter-attacking on his own. And a lot of the lines show that, in fact, black's got good counter-attacking chances, and they aren't, boring lines where white has no risks. For instance, this line 5 knight d7 against a 3d4 line gives black very good chances with his pawn sacrifice. Also, in the main line, black has got good chances. For instance, the game Hubner-Boric, the move 10 queen d6 is very flexible, and black has very good attacking chances on the king side.